Hi, everyone. Super Bowl champ Vernon Davis here from Legal Help Center. If you've been injured in an accident and think you deserve compensation, listen up, because we have legal professionals standing by right now to answer your questions for free. You can find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth.
Thanks, Vernon. You heard it, folks. If you've been injured, call and find out how much you qualify for. Call 800-497-4410. Advertisement sponsored by Legal Help Center. May not be available in all states.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation, as usual, as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about dementia change.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Lori LeBay, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks. Today, we're going to be having a great conversation talking about, is there a crisis in memory care? And we've got an expert with us today, and I can't wait to introduce you to her. But before I do introduce you to Gail, I always like to give a shout out to our main website, Alzheimer Speaks, where you can find a ton of free educational resources. So please go there and just click on our free educational resource tab to listen, to read, to download video, watch video, a wide variety of helpful tools that we've been curating for many, many years now, and they're all available to you. Also, our sister company is Dementia Map, and Dementia Map is someplace where you can connect to services, products, and tools around the world. And if you're not listed in there, we'd love you to take a free listing, or we also have some inexpensive paid listings too, where we can help expand your brand. And for individuals looking for information, there's absolutely no cost, and you don't have to make an account. We're not going to take any of your information at all. We really value your privacy, and we want you to make sure that you are comfortable on the site. So with no further ado, let's introduce you to our guest today. Well, Gail, I am so excited to have you on the show today. We're going to be talking about a really important topic to me, which is memory care, and just, are they safe? You know, how do we age in this country, and you know, the benefits and the downfalls that we see, you know, with all of this. So, if you don't mind introducing yourself to our audience, I'd really appreciate it.
Oh, I'd be happy to. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm super pumped to be here. I'm Gail Weatherill, also known as the Dementia Nurse. I've been a registered nurse for 45 years, and for about the last 20 years, I've worked in and around long-term care, in home health, long-term, in hospice care, and as a director of nursing for several years in both nursing home setting and assisted living / memory care settings. So I've been doing it so long, I tell people, don't worry, I know everything, and what I don't know, I'm not afraid to make up. But actually that should be, I know where to go look it up. So I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. You are also the author of your book called The Caregiver's Guide to Dementia, Practical Advice for Caring for Yourself and for Your Loved One, which is so important to have that balance. So thank you for putting that out there. And last I looked, you were like over 30,000 you sold on Amazon so far.
That's a fact. If you build it, they will come. I wrote that book as an alternative to the 36-hour day. The 36-hour day is an amazing book. It's been sort of the Bible of dementia care for many years, and they keep it updated. But it's over 400 pages long, and sometimes you just need somebody to give it to me straight, give me a list, tell me what to do right now. And so that's where the Caregiver's Guide to Dementia came in. It's shorter. It has a lot of bullet lists in it, and then references where you can go if you want to read more.
Well, that's wonderful. And I too, I think the 36-hour day was kind of looked at as the Bible, but it was overwhelming, and people would go,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, are we going to get hit with all this stuff?" You know, and there was a lot of clinical stuff where it sounds like yours has more practical advice of how do we live with this on a daily basis. And
that's it. One of the best reviews I got was somebody said, "I felt like a friend was holding my hand going through this." Yeah. And when I read that, I said, bingo, done my job. So I hope people take a look at it.
Wonderful. Have you, now I know you're in dementia care as a professional, but have you been hit by it personally in your own family?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Lord have mercy. My father, who has been passed away about 5 years now, had vascular dementia. And he and my mother were living alone down in Florida, and I'm up in Virginia. And my mother got ill with totally unrelated, and she passed away. So he was there on his own. Very proud man. He didn't need help. He knew what he was doing. And, you know, I ended up moving to Florida to be with him and try and help him and do what I could. But I've done it professionally a long time, but as I'm sure most of you know, doing it with your own is a whole different animal.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm with you there. My mom lived with dementia for 30 years, and taking care of her versus giving advice to others is very different. Very different. Because you do have all those emotional ties and the family history of different roles, and there's a lot of dynamics that come into play.
A whole lot. And
wonderful. Can you explain to our audience what dementia care activism is and how you got involved in it?
Yes, I can. Well, when you think about an activist, you think about people who take action to move the needle on issues that are important to them. I call it rabble rousing as much as anything, stirring up trouble. Good trouble, as John Owens would say. We need a lot of good trouble going on in this arena. And I got into it as I started practicing with folks who had dementia and their families, and it was just in my face every day how much our healthcare system fails these individuals with the disease and the people who love them. And in my experience over the years, the people who love them suffer just as much, and in many cases more, than the person with the actual illness. And I just was, I was so sad and disgusted and whatever. And I knew, I was realistic enough to know I wasn't going to save the world. I wasn't going to move and make big changes in healthcare. But what I could do is I could educate consumers, and I could help caregivers understand what their rights were, what their options were, how to stand up for themselves and their loved one. And so I went down that road, and that has led me into other opportunities to influence legislators and bigger groups of people. My favorite picture behind me is 500 of my favorite nurse friends and I in front of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. It's an organization called Nurses Take D.C., and we go up on a regular basis and bang the drum for better staffing ratios, which is certainly an issue in memory care that affects them. And I just have this belief to the bottom of my soul that if you know things, you're beholden to the universe to share them. I've had this incredible career over all these years, and to me it would just be the ultimate sin to sit here in my little chair in Virginia and not use that to help people.
Well, and I think that's a really healing piece. I know that was for me too.
Yes.
I stepped into this. I sold, residential real estate for 25 years. I did not want to leave. I loved my job, but as a frustrated daughter, I was actually encouraged by my senior housing buds. And at the very end, memory care was just coming to step into this space, because even senior housing recognized everything wrapped around dementia was kind of doom and gloom and give me your money. It
Right.
wasn't about what this is like. How do you live with it? How do you come to peace with this and live graciously alongside it and with it? And so that's how, Alzheimer's Speaks was created. And from day one, I wanted to connect people to resources, products, and tools, because as I was digging, I found they were there, but no one was pulling them together for us, which made me even angrier. And so, my mom's been gone since 2014, so 11 years. And I stepped into this in 2009. And from day one of her being diagnosed, I always wanted there to be a website, where people could get free information. I get frustrated with everything that's charged a fee out there for people to access. And some of it's good and some of it's not so good, and so we created Dementia Map as well to try to help pull all kinds of resources around the world together, because, just because you're in Virginia or Florida or California doesn't mean those services, products, or tools have to be in your state or in your city to help you. And I think since COVID, people are realizing that, actually more so than a lot of businesses are realizing that, or organizations. So I think the activism piece, when you mentioned, if you know things, share things, is so critically important, because you don't know who else is dealing with this, who doesn't know where to go, or some people feel shame about it or embarrassment. And we got to get rid of that, because that does not help this journey one little.
No, it's not like it isn't bad enough already.
Yeah. So I think everyone can step in and step up at all different levels. They might not be a renowned author like you. They might not do a podcast or a blog. They might just dribble out information in comfortable conversations to their friends or someone they see at the grocery store. It's just as powerful of what everyone else is doing. It takes us all, I believe, anyways.
Oh, absolutely. About I can't remember how many years ago, with a couple of other ladies who were involved with family care of loved ones with dementia, we co-founded a closed Facebook group for dementia caregivers. And the idea was, we set it up and we said, okay, this is going to be a space where people can come and say the things they're thinking, but if they said them out loud in other settings, it might not be responded well. We just wanted people to have a place to go and scream and do whatever they needed to do. And it has turned into just an incredible community. There's over 62,000 people in the group at this point from over 100 countries.
What's the name of the group, Gail?
The name of the group is Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregiver Support. And their profile picture involves large purple flowers. There's several groups talking about Alzheimer's and dementia, but that would be us.
Okay. That's good for people to know, because there's, back in the day, there was only one or two of them, and they've really grown. And,
right.
I like where you're allowing people to express their emotions. And people don't understand what this disease can do to everybody. Both sides need to be able to express their emotions, the ones living with the disease and the ones supporting it as well, without being attacked, because stuff's not healthy. It comes out in all different ways.
It is not. And to me, what I have found is, if I want to help the people living with dementia, the very best thing I can do is take care of the mental health of the people who are taking care of them. That is my mission. Yeah. I focus on the family caregivers because that's where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly. And so often the health professionals don't really understand it. Again, they can.
Oh, no.
And what I love now is seeing the families bringing resources into the clinics. And the doctors are finally, not all of them, but a lot of them are accepting the help, because they don't know what's out there either, and that's a huge change, because before it would have been poo-poo.
Yeah. Well, there are still a lot of pockets where it's still whatever,
Yep.
Physicians are socialized to be the experts and to not have their knowledge base questioned. And there are a lot of times that their perception of their knowledge is not congruent with what their knowledge actually is. And that is really frustrating for caregivers. That was another reason that I wrote The Caregiver's Guide to Dementia. I love it and I've had this, I go around and give it to physicians, and the next thing I know, they're going, oh man, I need a bunch of these because I want everybody in the office to read it. And it is often people bringing the knowledge to them more so than them going out and seeking it.
Yeah. Well, they're like a family. They don't know where to start. They don't know what to trust.
They do not. And, everybody in healthcare right now is trying to do the work of three people as one human being. And a lot of things fall off the plate. And keeping up with these developments is one of them that does. It's very sad, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk to you about this documentary that you recently appeared in, and it's called No Country for Old People. And if I'm not mistaken, Susie Singer is one of the big pushes behind there, who I adore. So why don't you tell our audience more about this film?
Susie Singer Carter is a filmmaker. Lives in California, and she was doing her thing in film, making films, doing well. And her mother developed dementia and was in a nursing home. And over the course of several years, her mother was in 5-star rated nursing homes, but anything and everything that could go wrong went wrong. And, she did the best she could, trying to get through it, trying to find resources, doing what caregivers are out there doing every day. And when all was said and done, and her sweet mother was finally released from her misadventure, Susie said, we've got to let people know about this. This is just terrible. So that's how the film got started. No Country for Old People. And it is, in a lot of ways, No Country for Old People. And I ended up, by hook or by crook, I came across her radar somehow. And she knew I had quite a few strong opinions on the matter. And so that's how we connected. The documentary itself is actually a series. It's a 3-part series. It's available on Amazon Prime. There is a $4.99 fee to watch it on Amazon Prime, and I hope people won't balk at that, because that fee is going to a new nonprofit that's going to be advocating for nursing home reform in the country. It's not going to Jeff Bezos. It's coming back to us. But it goes through her story, and then she brings in experts to say, yeah, this is why this is happening. This is where these things are happening. And, this is what people can do about it.
Caring for someone with dementia is one of the toughest journeys, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm Allison Schreier, and my experience caring for my husband inspired me to create Zinnia, a therapeutic streaming service designed to support people living with dementia and reduce caregiver stress. Zinnia offers research-backed videos intentionally created for people with dementia, engaging, calming, and easy to follow. Whether you need to ease agitation, create moments of joy, or make daily routines smoother, Zinnia is here to help. Family and professional caregivers use our content to turn challenges into opportunities for connection. Accessible by subscription on mobile devices and connected TVs, Zinnia is simple to use whenever you need it. Because when caregiving feels easier, life feels better. Go to zinniatv.com and sign up for a free trial today. Use the code RESOURCE for 15% off an annual Zinnia subscription.
Yeah, it's I just think of the work, and yet I also think of personally what they've gone through. But again, Susie's used her experience to share with the world, and I don't think there's anything more powerful in the world than shared experience and coming from that authentic self, because people know when you're being real, and it just teaches so much faster. And film is one of those things where people don't actually sit down thinking they're going to learn at the level that they do, but they'll be laughing and crying, and just kind of this non-talk or non-stop resonance with them. I know I had a film that I was promoting called what was it? It was called His Neighbor Phil originally, and changed it to A Timeless Love. And people would walk out afterwards and they would call me 2 weeks later going, I'm still talking about this film, and the impact that it has. And so I know this film will have the same feeling people will get with that. It's something that you can't let go of. You can't forget what you've seen. And
No, you can't. And one of our purposes is so many people like you, like me, once their active caregiving days are behind them, they're eager to do something to help the next one that's coming down the pike. And so out of this documentary, there's a new, as I said, nonprofit coming up. It's called ROAR. That was Susie's name, the ROAR movement. It's respect, oversight, accountability, and reform. And we're just going to rattle some trees and see what we can do to make an impact. If people go to nocountryforoldpeople.com, they'll see in the menu the ROAR movement, ROAR, and they can find information there. Or they can go to my website, the dementianurse.com, and they can find all sorts of goodies there.
Wonderful. I love that. I love acronyms. I think that's fantastic. And I love the fierceness of ROAR too.
Yes.
It tells you the passion behind it.
We aren't planning on being nice.
Well, good. What focuses you to drive, and focus on current issues in memory care? I guess, what powers you, and then kind of maybe what are your main concerns with memory care right now?
Well, in a lot of ways, memory care is reflecting what a lot of industries are going through. People say, well, is memory care, is it really a crisis, or are you, and I'm like, well, if it hasn't affected you yet, or someone you love, fasten your seatbelt, because I promise you it's coming.
It'll be considered a crisis.
Exactly. Yeah, really. If you aren't in crisis now, trust me, honey, you're on your way. But the thing of it is, so much has changed in the long-term care industry in the last 15 years. A good while back, a lot of folks, investment individuals, saw the baby boomer silver tsunami coming and said, oh, services for these people are going to be in demand. And what happened was long-term care became a favorite investment opportunity for a lot of investment firms. And these firms started gobbling up the mom and pop nursing homes, and all of a sudden you're being run by a corporate office. And our experience is, and the stats are there, the documentary talks about it, but I see it every single day in working with families. The model we have is that the primary motive is profit, the return for the investors and the owners. It is not about the residents. It is not about the staff. It is about the love of money, which we know is the root of all evil. And there is a tremendous amount of evil going on in the industry these days. I worked with a family recently, perfect example, and their loved one was in a memory care facility and was having a lot of problems. Family would show up and the person would have food still in their mouth 3 hours after the meal was over. Bruises on her arms that you knew full well, if you've got a big bruise right here, where do you suppose that came from? And those sorts of things. Well, this facility had been running short staffing. 3 aides to take care of 46 people with dementia. It doesn't matter how good the aide is. It doesn't matter how much they want to do the right thing. It's not going to happen. So I worked with the family to draft a complaint letter about these issues, and we focused not on the things that were happening, because what I didn't want to see is I didn't want them to take it as fuel to go back to the staff and say, yeah, not doing what's supposed to be, blah, 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 blah. Right. The problem is with the business model. The money goes to the top. There's a lot of competition in these facilities, so a lot of the money goes to make a big fancy building that looks good, and when you go tour, it looks fabulous, blah, blah. Bottom line is, precious little is left over to pay the people who are doing the frontline caregiving. So that was the letter that we wrote. We said, you're running this like this, and in typical industry fashion, the reply was the complaints that we had for things that they were seeing were either denying that they happened or blaming it on some other service that was coming in to treat the person, like hospice or physical therapy, just deflecting responsibility. And with a straight face saying our staffing is just as good or better than anyone around. And, it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's changed so much out there. I was in healthcare years and years and years ago with the developmentally disabled. Back when I'm 66 now, so back when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and pretty much everybody who worked there wanted to help. I mean, they wanted to engage. They were relationship based. They knew their peeps. And it was just a really loving, relationship. And it wasn't perfect. I mean, we had things that went wrong, but and people worked as a team. And that's one of the biggest things that I see now is there's no team effort or very little team effort. Right. Everyone's just kind of covering their own butt. And they see the favoritism going on. They see the toxic person who never gets fired, and all the good ones fall to the wayside. Right. And management doesn't step in. And it's very much changed. I have a couple of close friends in memory care right now, and my heart just breaks. And there's not a lot that I can do about it. And not that there aren't some good ones out there, but you have to be so careful in placement, and yet you and I know it changes with the staff.
Exactly.
I remember my mom being she was in a nursing home that had memory care back in the day, and she lived there 14 years. She was not expected to live that long, and she did. But because I truly believe because she was engaged, and she felt part. I mean, it was like a family to her.
Yeah.
And then 3 staff on her floor all left at the same time. All were wonderful. They had graduated college. They were going on to different places for their work opportunities. And they never recovered. That floor never, ever, ever recovered. And that's when it really slapped me in the face of how much things have changed. There was no consistency in knowing residents' backstory and what their needs were. And, those things are critical. And I would urge investors to truly come and stay for a couple of days and just observe and think, is this how I would want to be treated, or how I would want my loved one to be treated? And I think their priorities might change at that, because
one would hope. And I will say we're already starting to get some good feedback on the documentary. There have been some CEOs and some physicians who have written and said, this was a punch in the gut. And when I stopped and looked at it and looked at the way we're running our business, it was time to look in the mirror.
Yep.
And say, oh, it's a time for reckoning. So, the more we beat the drum, and I've never been one for hanging around and wringing hands over what a terrible situation we have. Yeah, Lord have mercy, we have a hot mess. I could sit here and tell stories all night long, horror stories, but that's not going to get us anywhere. We have to have hope, and that, to me, that's a lot to do with activism and where I get involved, because people need encouragement. They need to know. And families need encouragement. The people with the disease need encouragement. And the poor staff need encouragement. You know, you look at the turnover rates for staff, they're astronomical. Astronomical. And, you know, what you described is what happens whenever I'm working around, if I have a client in a facility that I do advocacy work for. Boy, when I see the staff in there, if I see a good one, I am loving all over that person and saying, how are you doing? You know, how are you holding up? Because the good ones come in and they've got 18 people with dementia to take care of. So are they going to go home thinking, boy, I did a good job today? No, they're going to go home thinking, oh my God, I didn't get to do this, I didn't do that. And then, you know, who, like you said, you know who's sitting over there on her butt playing with her phone and blah, blah, blah. So it's a very complex situation.
And it's hard because I saw this with my own daughter. She was an activities director, and she's like, Mom, I can't do everything they want me to do. You know, the staff are supposed to bring them to my activities, but I have to go get them. I have to set up. I have to go get them. I have to do the activity. I have to bring them back, and then I have to clean up, and I'm supposed to already be starting my other activity. And she says, and they have needs in between. And she's like, I can't walk away. And she actually stayed in her job probably several years longer than she should have for mental health purposes, because she was afraid to leave them.
Do you ever struggle with your prayer life, wondering what to pray or how to truly connect with God day to day? Introducing the Grace Daily Devotions app, your journey to deeper faith and personalized spiritual growth. Grace delivers daily devotions and prayers crafted just for you, based on what your heart and soul needs most. Experience devotional time and prayer like never before. Daily devotions made easy. No more searching, no more guessing, just grace, guidance, and growth at your fingertips using the latest technology. Download the Grace Daily Devotions app by going to graceapp.io. That's graceapp.io. Let grace inspire your prayer life. Start your journey now.
Because
that's the heartbreaker. That's the heartbreaker. You left out one important step in all that stuff your daughter had to do, because after all of that was said and done, she had to sit down and type out on a computer somewhere exactly what she did, what she's going to do next time, and how this and how that. And, you know, licensure and oversight by the states of the care is all based on documentation. And so if the paperwork is what they're going to judge you on, then the paperwork becomes more important than the care itself. Yeah. And that's another phenomenon that really frustrates people.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm going to take just a quick break here. We have been talking with Gail Weatherill, who is the dementia nurse. She is actually a registered nurse, and she is a dementia care advocate. And she is the author of this amazing book called The Caregiver's Guide to Dementia: Practical Advice for Caring for Yourself and for Loved Ones. And her website is thedementianurse.com. She's on Facebook as the Dementia Nurse, and she can also be found on LinkedIn as Gail Weatherill, RN. And you'll also find her in the documentary No Country for Old People, which can be purchased for only $4.99, and those funds go to fund a nonprofit to really help change our policies to protect people and get better care. I always like to give a shout out to my webmasters, Q for Good. I just adore them. I know you guys might be sick of hearing about them, but there's always somebody listening who might need a good webmaster. And they're difficult to find. Someone who understands the everyday person's language and doesn't want to deal with the black hole, just wants things to work properly. And
there you go.
Yeah, so check out Q for Good. If you mention my name or Alzheimer's Speaks, they'll give you 10% off. And of course, they'll do a free consultation for you as well. But Gail, let's get back to you, because I've learned so much, and I absolutely adore your passion. I feel like I resonate right with you in terms of changing the world. You know, I have a key phrase that I say: I want to shift from crisis to comfort. And I think that's all people want, is peace, and to make sure their loved ones are safe, and that they maintain their sanity in the process. And that is not too much to ask for.
One would think.
Yeah.
One would think.
But it does get really complicated. So, you know, for the average caregiver, advocating for their loved one, a lot of people caring don't look at themselves as an advocate. But I mean, you have to put your armor on, and you have to
Absolutely.
have your eyes wide open and your flashlight in hand, and checking out all the little, crooks and crannies, because you don't know where you're going to spot something. And it's so important, because especially a person with dementia, they can't tell us, and we really have to look for the signs. So what advice do you have to families who need to be these advocates for their loved ones?
Well, one of the things I tell folks is it's a misconception to think, okay, well, we reached our limits at home in terms of taking care of mom. We can't keep her safe at home, and we need to move her to 24-hour care. And it's a misperception if you think that's kind of a step down in terms of your caregiving days, because it's not. Your caregiving days will go on. It won't be as intense with the 24-hour responsibility, but you are still a caregiver, and your loved one needs you just as much when they're in a facility as they did when they were at home. Things that I recommend to people: educate yourself, and it's hard. Certainly, Alzheimer's Speaks is a wonderful beacon, a place that people can go to get information. It's so hard on the internet. It's like trying to, take a sip of water from a fire hose. There's so much out there. How do you know? And to me, the best way to do that is talk to other caregivers, talk to people, consult with people like Alzheimer's Speaks. So read my book, educate yourself. The thing is, none of us was born knowing any of this. The vast majority of caregivers are women, and we've been socialized that, we should know how to do these things. It's part of keeping the hearth in the home. Well, heck, man, no, we didn't grow up watching someone else take care of someone with dementia. It hasn't been that big an issue. So educate yourself. One of the things I really encourage people is to become familiar with what your rights are. Everybody talks about resident rights. Every facility is required to give you information on what the residents' rights are. So to become familiar with those, look at every piece of paperwork you ever signed for anything with a fine-tooth comb and or an attorney. We'll get a real estate attorney involved in buying a house so they can go over all the fine print to advocate for us. But Are we going to spend money on an attorney to go check our mother into a nursing home? You know, people don't think about that. And it's that old idea that these are helpers. This is a caregiving industry. And unfortunately, those days have sailed. So just being very careful with the things that you sign and reach out to other caregivers. That's the biggest one. Talk with the Alzheimer's Association. You can go on Mr. Google and say, you know, dementia support groups near me, and see if there are possibilities for live groups. There's a ton of groups on Facebook. There are groups for general dementia caregivers. There are groups for people who are caring for a spouse, bereaved caregivers. How do I live, you know, after all of this is said and done? So, you know, I just encourage people, don't go it alone. And don't believe the stuff inside your head. I'm not doing this right. I could be doing this better. I have a little spot on my website where people can click on that and schedule a 15-minute call with me. And 9 times out of 10, those calls end up being somebody tells me what they're most concerned about. And what they really need and want to hear is, you are doing a great job. Trust your gut. You know what you're doing. The doctor may not know. Uncle Hal, who lives on the other side of the country and hasn't seen Mama in 15 years, but is pretty sure he knows how you should be taking care of her. No. People just want to be told, and I'll tell them, baby. I'm like, call me up. 15 minutes don't hurt my feelings. I'll get on there and tell you. And I always tell people, you know, email me after this, whatever. But what I find is most of the time, all they needed was somebody to say, you know what you're doing. You're on the right track. Here's a couple other things you could try. People just need to be encouraged.
Oh, I think that's so true. I talk with people too, and they're like, oh, you understand. Because nobody understands. You know, they're like, I don't really get it. And they're like, I know what they're telling me isn't right. But then, again, that second opinion in your head, you know, it just rips you to shreds. I loved when you talked about, you know, getting educated and knowing your rights. And you know, no one ever thinks about pulling in an attorney, you know, signing this stuff for review, or just even, I know when I go to buy a car, they're like, well, sign. I'm like, no, I read everything. I was in real estate for 25 years. I read everything. And it's like, if I need a day or two to review it and you can't give me that, that tells me we got issues here.
Right.
And it's not me. But I also know that very few places will change their terminology for you on things.
Well, in my experience, that's not always true.
Okay.
And it is hard because they want to fill the bed. That's their goal, is getting you in the door. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard because usually when it's such an emotion-laden step. Mm-hmm. You know, besides the end of the journey, transitioning someone into other people's care is, to me, one of the most traumatic milestones of the caregiving journey. So you're worried, you know, the committee's up here talking to you. How do you know this is the right place? What have you to do? And so people don't think. They don't think clearly. You're not thinking clearly when you're in that situation. And I tell people, just like you say, if they will not let you take a contract home and look at it for 24 hours, then you're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong place.
Exactly. What can people do to really help improve our memory care for the future?
Hot dog. There's lots going on. Join the ROAR movement. That's a good one. There's safety in numbers. There are a lot of advocacy groups that are pushing from one corner or another corner. The national group for long-term care improvement. All you got to do is go on Mr. Google and say dementia advocacy groups, and they'll pop up. You know, the groups like the Alzheimer's Association, the Lewy Body Association, the associations that are committed to one specific type of dementia. You know, pay attention to what they're doing, get involved, be a volunteer, and do what you can to influence what happens in Washington. Activism for better care for our elders is anything that you would do to try to move the laws. I mean, the cuts to Medicaid, that's a whole, I mean, we could spend another 2 hours talking about that. But, you know, go see your legislator, write him a letter, call him, just do something. You don't have to save the world, just do something. And I really, Martin Luther King said that the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. And I truly believe that. Because the thing that's going to move this needle is the power of love. Mm-hmm. And when you love on someone who has dementia, when you love on someone who is working in that field, when you put those good feelings out there, call a nursing home and say, can I come, for a couple of hours once a month and talk with people or whatever. There's all sorts of ways. And anything we can do to put positivity out there, to push back against the love of money and how that influences elder care, it's going to make a difference. All of us together, Yeah. We're not alone.
I loved during COVID seeing people volunteer in different ways. If it was drive-bys or playing music outside or writing letters of thanks to the people who are caring, as well as to the people who are in the nursing homes or the memory care or assisted living. Just those little contacts were so powerful. Gail, I could talk with you all day long. I really appreciate your time today. Again, we have been talking with Gail Weatherill. She is the dementia nurse who is an actual registered nurse. She is a dementia care activist and the author of the wonderful book, The Caregiver's Guide to Dementia, Practical Advice for Caring for Yourself and your loved ones. So as always, I encourage our audience to be a giver of hope. Like, click, and share, not because the numbers are important to me, but because the information is important to share. Like Gail said earlier, if you have the knowledge, share the knowledge. And you don't know in your sphere of influence who needs this information. There's a lot of people who are zip-lipped, and you don't know they're dealing with this or they're worried about this. But we have to be able to show them that there is plenty of resources to support them when they're ready to reach out, and that it's safe and it's comfortable and it is normal. It is normal to need this information. And I know everyone goes, well, dementia is not normal. And it's like, but it's for an awful lot of families. It's a new normal that people have to be able to live with and know that they're supported and that they're not shunned and they shouldn't be embarrassed. And they will be surprised at how many people are willing to help them. if they just step in. And it might be to your Alzheimer's and dementia caregiving group on Facebook, and maybe they're just going to be a voyeur for a while until they feel comfortable posing a question or making a comment. That's very common. Maybe they'll go to Alzheimer's Speaks to our poetry section when they're not ready for a group, but they want to feel that somebody understands, and they can read that, and they can laugh, and they can cry in their own home without anybody seeing it. So again, thank you so much. You can reach Gail again at the dementianurse.com website. She is on Facebook as the Dementia Nurse. You can find her on LinkedIn under her name. And don't forget to check out the documentary, No Country for Old People. It's on Amazon. It's only $4.99. It's a series of 3. And those funds are going to go for a nonprofit called ROAR to help push policies to make the world a better place. So again, Gail, thank you so much for your time today.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesta here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now, this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.
Thank you.